Good afternoon and happy Tuesday, everyone. Welcome back to Conversations in Education. I am your host, Vincent Cheeks, and we are here today on Tuesday, November the 9th for another exciting conversation with some very exciting people that I got to meet recently. We're not going to waste any time. I don't have any announcements today, so we're going to bring these special guests right on in. My first guest is Miss Mary Fernandez. She is the special events and volunteer manager at Oakland Cemetery. Hi, Mary. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. And I did get your title right, correct?
You got it.
And to make sure, thank you. Thank you for being here. And my next guest is a storyteller, an actor, and a teaching artist extraordinaire. He goes by the name of Mr. John Doyle. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm pleasure to be here.
Yes. I'm very excited to have you guys here and to talk about this wonderful production that we all just had a chance to work on. Was it your first time, John?
No, this would be my third year, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Third year, we're talking about capturing the spirit of Oakland. Okay, we're going to get into this conversation right now. So I'm going to start with you, Ms. Fernandez. Can you tell our listening audience, please, what exactly is the historic Oakland Cemetery?
Well, it's a lot of things. A lot more than just a cemetery, which I think surprises folks. It's an outdoor museum. It's oftentimes a stage. It is the final resting place of over 70,000 Atlantans. It's the oldest city park in Atlanta, and we are within the Parks and Recreations Department in the city of Atlanta. And it's a gathering space. It's a place that really reflects the history of our city and makes it visible in a way that that history isn't always readily accessible in other places.
Okay. Now, my producer sent me a little bit more tidbits about Oakland Cemetery, which I'm sure you probably know this. She said it was originally called the Atlanta Graveyard or City Burial Place. Is there a reason why that was changed?
There's not a good story. Guess it had a lot of oak trees. So there was initially a municipal cemetery that was located downtown. And around the turn of the 19th century, or sorry, the middle of the 19th century, it was starting to get a little crowded. That was becoming prime real estate. So they decided to establish Oakland in 1850. They went all the way out of town, which is now, pretty smack dab in the middle of town. We're over by Grant Park.
Right.
And they founded Oakland originally on 6 acres. And over the years, it expanded. It's now at 48, and we have no intention of making it any bigger.
I hope it can't get any bigger. Pretty big, 48 acres. Yes, and that was one of the points that Penny mentioned. It was officially renamed in 1872 to Oakland Cemetery. By then, like you said, it had expanded to 48 acres, mainly due to pressures of the Civil War. Oakland became a popular destination for Sunday carriage rides and picnics. And I would say there's still I don't know if y'all still do the carriage rides, but I know people still go there and have, eat and have picnics and stuff.
Yeah, so something that people don't really realize is that for the Victorians, death was a much more familiar thing. People died in the home. They were typically cared for before burial in the home. And so when it came to recreation, people wanted to spend time with their family members. I think the Victorians also didn't really believe in wasted space so much. And so from the beginning, cemeteries were some of the first parks. It was always designed for recreation. And yeah, everything we do in the cemetery is really honoring that tradition.
Cemeteries were some of the first parks. That's interesting to me because the first time I was going to the production and I saw 2 girls eating like right over one of the burial plots, I was like, is this really somewhere you want to come to have a good meal? Like, I don't, this maybe because I've never considered that. So it just was a little odd to me to see that, but I saw it a couple of different days that I was there. So thank you for that tidbit of information. Atlanta history, everybody. John, before you started working on You said this is your third year, correct?
Yeah, third year, right.
Working on Capturing the Spirit of Oakland. Before you started working on Capturing the Spirit of Oakland, had you heard of Oakland Cemetery before?
I'd heard of Oakland Cemetery, but I didn't know about Oakland Cemetery. So I didn't know that they had all these programs there.
Right.
I didn't know about the tour. So my first time going inside the cemetery was when I think it was my first audition.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, wow. And I had the same experience that you did. I saw there were people just walking, and I was like, oh, it's like a park in here.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, in the some of the shrubbery and some of the gardening that they've done to some of the areas is really immaculate. Like it's
right. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful area. Yeah.
Most definitely. So, John, how did you get involved with the Capturing the Spirit of Oakland production?
Yeah, so a friend of mine, he was recruited by another storyteller, actor friend of mine, Deb Strayhorn, and he couldn't do it. So he said, hey, John, I got something going on in October, and he gave me like little tidbits about it. I was like, okay, I'll check it out. So I called. Now, I've known Deb for years. Okay. She's like, yeah, John, yeah, I think you'd be great. So go ahead and audition for it. So I auditioned for it. Well, first I read the, of course I read the sides for it. And I was like, oh, this sounds like an interesting story.
Sides, can you give a listen?
Yeah.
Insight on what sides is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So whenever you go out on auditions, you get what's called sides. And that's just an excerpt of the script. Okay. So I just got an excerpt of the script. And I said, okay, this sounds really interesting. This person's story. So I went in and I read for it. Really, and I guess one of the things that really captured me was the people that I interacted with when I first went there, and how nice everybody was, how warm everybody was, inviting it was. So that off the bat was a great, first initiating part of it. And then once I got a chance to actually read the full script and read this person's story, I was like, okay. And I'm all about telling stories, telling the history. Right. And so I've been all in since. But I had no idea of what I was walking into when when my friend first called me. I was like, at the cemetery? And it's outside in October. So, okay, I'll try it. I'll see what's about. But I trusted a friend, and so I'm glad I did.
Right. Yeah, before I've been living in Atlanta since 2000. So this October made 21 years, and I had never heard of Oakland Cemetery the entire time I lived here until I had the audition. Right, and so it just amazes me. And if you don't know where Grant Park is, right there at Memorial Drive in Oakland Avenue. Is the Oakland Avenue, Mary?
Yeah, we're kind of over near the intersection with Oakland Avenue, Memorial, and MLK.
Right.
It runs parallel to us.
Right. So I was amazed. I had driven by this area, I don't know how many times in the 20 years I've lived here, and just to not know it was there and the rich history that is there was pretty amazing to me.
That's kind of just to kind of set the stage for folks, Capturing the Spirit of Oakland is our annual fundraising event where we feature the stories of between 7 to 8 different residents of the cemetery. And what's interesting is that this model of fundraising for cemeteries has expanded to other places. We've seen other cemeteries, many of them have reached out to us and say, how do you do this? We desperately need fundraising. And there is an invisibility to cemeteries and their preservation needs in general. People don't really pay attention to cemeteries because I think it reminds them of something they don't want to think about.
Right. Yeah.
And many of these historic cemeteries are in really desperate need of repair and of preservation work. And so this tour where folks can go into the cemetery at night, it's lit up. You see this kind of the beauty of the cemetery, the architecture there. And then you hear these stories and it really drives home the importance of why these places matter, and why, maybe we should take a second look, and when we drive by, not kind of turn away or hold your breath so the spirits don't come in. If y'all have ever heard that.
Wait, what? Hold your breath. So what?
Oh yeah, like growing up, whenever you drive by a cemetery, you hold your breath so the spirits don't get in.
Oh wow.
Is that a Southern thing, or is that like a overall general thing? Because I've never heard that.
I don't know if it's a Southern thing, a Cuban thing, or I don't hold my breath anymore. I'd pass out at work all the time.
Now I have heard that when you pass a cemetery, if you're in your car and you have the radio on, you should cut the radio down to show respect to the dead.
Wow.
I've heard that a lot, and I'm from Albany, Georgia, which is country, small town here. And I've heard that a lot since I was little. So
to me, it depends on what you're playing.
Well, we just had the Wailers perform in the cemetery, so.
What was that, Mary?
We just had the Wailers perform at our music festival, so if we're supposed to turn the music down, then I don't know if we're doing
that. I don't. Okay, so Wailers. So you have concerts out there, right?
Yeah. So we have So we have different kind of scales of programming that we do at the cemetery. There's 5 big special events, so that's kind of where the attendance is in the thousands, and that's our art show in the spring, Illumin, our Tunes from the Tombs music festival. We have
from the Tombs.
Yeah, so the original Wailer, the original Wailers and Jupiter Coyote were our headliners this year. We have Sunday in the Park, which is our annual fall festival, the Run Like Hell 5K, and
Run from Hell 5K. Okay.
And then Run Like Hell. And then in October, our largest fundraiser by far is Capturing the Spirit of Oakland.
Okay. And so is that why Historic Oakland Cemetery has a nonprofit status?
Yeah. So, oh man, this is a rabbit hole. Are you sure you want to go down that?
Look, we're trying to learn about Oakland Cemetery. More people coming out, so we want to know everything.
A lot of more recent cemeteries have something called perpetual care, which is essentially where you put money in a trust for your burial site when you're buried there, and that pays for the continued care of your site. But Victorians couldn't fathom the idea that their family wouldn't come back and care for their burial site. And so as families moved away or died out, around the 1970s, Oakland was getting pretty run down. There were, lots of headstones knocked over, lots of spray paint, broken monuments. It was really overrun. The plants were overrun as well. It was just in need of a lot of help. And so in 1976, the Historic Oakland Foundation was formed to do both the hardscape and the landscape preservation of the site, and then as well as hold programming as a means for fundraising for the landscape and hardscape. But Oakland is still very much owned by the city. It is a City of Atlanta park. So we always work in partnership with Atlanta. But because we don't have that perpetual care aspect, we have to really work for every dollar we earn to make sure that, Oakland can be preserved for future generations.
Awesome. Now I think that's a good idea, now that I have gained some of the insight and experience of such a wonderful place. So I'm all for that. And so what exactly is your role, Mary, as the special events and volunteer manager at Oakland? What exactly do you do?
So it's a little bit of a hybrid role. I organize and plan our large scale special events. And for Capturing the Spirit of Oakland, that includes coordinating with the actors, the script writers, our amazing script writers, Patricia and Amina, and as well as our director, Matt Huff. So it's a lot of,
hey, Matt.
I know. It's a lot of coordination for Capturing the Spirit of Oakland in particular. And then we have over 300 active volunteers. So it's also working with them to get the different, event positions filled and make sure it can happen.
Wow. 300 volunteers. That's I've been on movie sets before, and that's like a regular movie set production. Like All these people participating, filling in roles, taking care of everything. And Mary, let me just say, shout out to you, Mary. Great job on the work that you did. Because let me tell you, every day I went there, the 7 days I went there, every time I saw Mary, she's running around like a chicken with her head cut off. And I mean, she's picking up stuff, moving stuff, telling people to do, go here, go there, go yonder. And that was just her job. And she didn't, there was no complaints. There was no.
Still smiling.
That's what I was about to say, John. Thank you. Like, there was no, I never saw you get agitated or, mad at anybody. You would just, okay, this needs to be done. Let's do it. Let's come together, group, whatever needs to happen. Let's make it happen. So,
well, I took the entire month of November off. So if I'm still smiling, there's a good reason for that.
Okay. All right. You did. I will agree with that. You definitely earned it. Okay. So, John, I want to get into some of the story of, some of the people. So, Mary, I'm going to have you touch on some of the other people, but I want to bring John in here to kind of give the people, our listeners, an overview of who the Tates were and what.
Yeah. So I had the pleasure of portraying James Tate. I have to tell you, I was truly inspired by his story. I mean, this was a man who was, enslaved. His father was actually his enslaver.
Yeah.
So which makes for a complicated relationship right off the bat, right? But he had the fortunate. He's fortunate. He learned how to read, which was something that not all the enslaved people had the fortunate ability to do. And so then he met this wonderful woman at the what they call the Brush Harbor. So on Sundays, on Sundays, the enslaved people were allowed to at that time to meet up with each other, and even folks from different plantations. And so he met up with this woman named Olivia, and he was smitten by her, and they ended up getting married. And of course, a lot of the stories. When we look back in the enslaved stories, a lot of these stories, you hear about the families being torn apart. They were not respected as far as, who they loved, and so a lot of times they, even after slavery was over, they were never able to find each other.
Right.
Which is part of the tragedy, right?
Sad,
yeah. So this particular story, even though they were torn apart, they were able to still be in contact with each other through letters.
Yes.
And he taught her how to read. Her name taught Olivia. He taught her how to read and how to write. And so they're able to communicate with each other. And what's powerful about this story is that, so even after emancipation, they were able to locate each other and find each other and reunite with each other. And he was able to be reunited with her and the children, and such a beautiful story. So even just with that alone is a beautiful story. But then also what this man accomplished. I mean, it just makes me want to. I have an opportunity to portray other people. Other historical figures, and it makes me look at myself and want to be better, right? So this man, he actually was not satisfied in just being now free, but he opened up a store, and it was the first Black-owned store in Atlanta. And not that we create success by money, but he ended up becoming one of the richest Black men in Atlanta. But he still wasn't satisfied by that. I mean, for him, it was also about, okay, I have to now further the education of people coming up under me. So he started the first Black elementary school.
Yeah.
And these are things I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I work in all these different schools. And so I'm thinking I know the history of Atlanta. And I realized I'm still scratching the surface of it.
Definitely.
And he was one of the founding members of the Atlanta University Center. And I went to Morehouse, and I did not know this.
That's That's the time you went to Morehouse, which he helped to found.
Right.
You can know that. I don't know why that is. That should not be.
Right. I mean, and to me, these are things that should be, because, you know, our children learn about all these different historical people in history. And I'm talking about here in Atlanta, but they don't know about the people who are very important for them in their development.
Right.
You know, in Atlanta.
Correct.
You know, and so we need to teach our students about these people. You know, so even in my own work, I'm going to take on and start sharing his story because it's so important.
Great idea.
So I think that the way that Black history has been taught in schools historically, you have the Civil War, and then you flash forward 100 years, and all of a sudden it's the Civil Rights Movement. And so this whole period in between of, you know, Reconstruction and the turn of the century and Jim Crow and segregation and the early civil rights movements, it really gets skipped over. And so, you know, in Atlanta, that's a particularly bad situation because there's so much there. There's so much rich history there, and kind of these giants of the Black community who laid the foundations for people like, you know, MLK to come out of Atlanta, laid the foundations, you know, created this incredibly empowered Black community economically, politically, socially, that made Atlanta what it is today, what laid that framework for the civil rights movement to be able to happen. Reconstruction is presented as a failure, but that's not true. Reconstruction was actually very successful until it was dismantled by white Southerners. And so you have the story of people like James Tate that showcases these strides that people were making, you know, 2, 5, 10, 15 years after being enslaved and truly having nothing to their name. So.
You know, and if I could just piggyback off that, you know, because they laid down a foundation, and why it's important to know this is because I was talking to a young brother a few weeks ago. I think he was 15, 16.
Okay.
And I was talking to him, and we was asking about, you know, what's some things that you aspire to do, and he said, you know, he said, man, you know, like I aspire to, like. He said, it might sound funny. I was like, no, I want to hear it. He's like, I want to own a corner store. He said, we always, you know, buy things from there, but, you know, I've never seen anybody that looks like me that's, you know, owning that. And he said, I know nobody's ever owned something like that before. I was like, wait, hold up. Let me tell you the story about James Tate. You know, and to tell him a story about somebody who has done this before, that there is a precedent for this.
Correct.
You know, to show that where he came from, you know, because I know this young man, you know, he's coming from, you know, a little bit of a hard background, but this man came from being enslaved. Right. You know what I mean? So it shows you like when you put your mind to something, when you really are focused on something, that you can do it. There's no odds that are so insurmountable that you cannot, you know, get through or get over. And so sharing that story with him, it actually inspired him. It's like, oh wow, he's like, I didn't know that, because he had never seen anybody that looks like him. That had a store, that owned a store.
That's amazing. That's a great story, bro. That is really heartfelt. And I can definitely appreciate that story. And I definitely get that, the part about James Tate being an inspiration. Because let me tell you something. When I learned of this story, I was totally re-inspired. Okay. First of all, as an educator and an entrepreneur in the city of Atlanta, it just gave me more motivation and more fuel to be like, I want to be able to leave a legacy like this man did, like he did in his family, and leave a lasting legacy for him and his children and his ancestors. I mean, and his descendants that come after him. That was number one. And then the love story. Okay. Let me tell you something. I've been single for 18 years. Okay. by choice. And it's because I'm looking for something, a love story like that. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't think it existed. Okay. I didn't think it existed anymore, but just stepping into his shoes and portraying that role and just feeling the love coming through the script. A wonderful script, which was written by Amina
McIntyre. Yeah. She's remarkable.
Yes. Yeah. And so it has re-inspired me that this type of love is possible. Okay. And it's a beautiful love story. And one of the best memories I have from portraying in this production is with every Olivia I played with, there were 4. With every Olivia that I played this part with, we made somebody cry, or as one woman put it, get misty-eyed. Okay. And that to me speaks to everybody as an actor and actress doing their part really well, but it also speaks to the writing that Miss McIntyre put into this script, because it was an excellent script and you can really feel all of that coming through the script. So I thought that was excellent. Go ahead, Mary.
Well, and I don't know if they came through when either of y'all were performing, but the Tate family actually had the opportunity to attend the tours.
Awesome.
And, God, I cry at everything, but talk about an emotional experience, getting to witness them almost being introduced to their ancestors. And that history. Right. I mean, how powerful that we have the opportunity to bring your family's story to life and to allow you to kind of see it played out before you. I mean, that's incredibly moving.
Yeah, I could only imagine how they felt seeing it, because I know the impact that it had on me. And so now, just like you, John, my goal is I want to tell this story from the mountaintops. Like, I want to scream it to everybody about who these people were. Now, Mary, my question for you is, I've done some, surface research trying to find more information on the Tates. There's not a lot of information out there about the Tates. Why do you think that is?
It's hard to say. I know there are scholars who have referenced the Tates in their literature, and their letters are out there. They're actually in the New York Public Library archive, so you can read them firsthand. But you have to know what you're looking for. And we have a genealogist who does all of Linda Faree. She does all of the research for our different residents. For many of our residents, anyone who you might classify as kind of locally notable, it can be challenging to access their story, but even more so for Atlanta's Black citizens, and those who were enslaved, of course, as well. Sometimes it's really a matter of finding what you can where you can. And believe it or not, the Tates are actually far more well known than other residents that we have featured, and it just still doesn't, it might be a little bit easier to find their story, but it doesn't make it a whole lot easier. It can take a lot of strategic, investigative report, but many of the stories we actually went directly to the Tate family themselves.
Okay.
And we're able to learn from their oral histories. And they've done a remarkable job of recording their family history as well.
And are a lot of them still in the Atlanta area?
Oh yeah. The Tates went on, they carried this tradition of education in their family. And Ernest Tate is our main point of contact with the cemetery. He's very involved with Big Bethel, and which of course, from the script, was where the first Black elementary school was founded, in the basement of Big Bethel.
Yeah.
As well as Morris Brown College was founded in the basement of Big Bethel. And so they had 6 children, so there's a lot of Tates out there. But they've all kind of continued this passionate work for education and community building. I mean, it's something that's very much been handed down in their family.
Okay. And where did you say their letters were again?
The New York Public Library archives.
New York Public Library.
And the fact that you have those letters recorded, you know exactly how they felt, what they were going through. When you're doing a lot of history, public history on, enslaved people, a lot of the time you have to work with empathy to think, well, how would this have made you feel? How might this have affected someone? But to have it clearly spelled out, you often don't have that kind of opportunity to know exactly how someone was feeling about family separation, to know exactly how someone was feeling about, their marriage not being honored. That's really special and unique.
Yeah, definitely is. Do you know the name of the first elementary school that they started? Because I did have one of the guests on the tour ask us that, and we didn't have the name because it wasn't in the script.
I believe it's the Gate City School.
The Gate City School.
I think. Oh my gosh. If I'm wrong, don't hold it against me. But
no, I was wondering because I don't know if I mentioned this to you all, Mary, when I auditioned, but the reason I got into entertainment is because I wanted to build my own performing arts school for opportunity challenged children, and so that led me to a path in the entertainment industry. And so, again, for me to step into his shoes and find out that he started the first Black elementary school in Atlanta, my mind was like, I was just totally blown away. And again, it gave me even more motivation to want to continue down that path and to, educate our children the way they're supposed to be educated and open them up to the field of the arts and just give them greater opportunities to express themselves in different ways, whether it's down the education path or down the arts path. You have multiple paths that you can choose from. And a lot of times, we as adults, we as parents, we as teachers, we like to try to put children in a box and say what they can and cannot do. And, from my first year being a teacher back in 2003, I knew that was totally wrong and not the way that we should be educating and rearing our children. So again, I was very humbled to step into this role and to learn all of the things that he and his wife did, because it was a team effort. And the amazing how they stuck to staying committed to each other, even though they never lived together because they lived on separate plantations. Olivia's owners moved her to Alabama. So he had to James had to get his freedom. He had to get money so that he could buy their freedom back and reunite his family. It's just a beautiful, beautiful love story. Please, people, if you have a chance next year, please go check out Capturing the Spirit of Oakland. We start around mid-October, Mary? Right?
Yep, mid-October every year.
Yeah, the 31st. And so how did the Capturing the Spirit of Oakland tour start? Because that's been 15 years now y'all been doing it? 16, something like that?
15, yeah.
Okay. How did the whole thing start?
So my predecessor was a woman named Mary Woodland. Okay. She actually passed away a little over a year ago. She's now a resident of Oakland.
She's wow.
Yeah, she's over by the bell tower, so she gets to oversee everything. Okay. The boss is still watching.
Awesome.
And so she was the one who envisioned this program. Okay. And we had for a long time been doing tours of the cemetery, but that's always been led by a tour guide who kind of provides you with the information. Okay. And so I'm not exactly sure where she got this idea of, providing the opportunity for visitors to meet the residents themselves. But it has since just grown into this really tremendous event. And, every year it gets a little bit bigger. A little bit more of a professional operation. We started with tiki torches, lighting the path, which is like a huge fire hazard.
Yeah, I would think so. Especially with drunk guests coming through, Mary.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, so the tour does provide libations.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mary.
Spirits with the spirits.
Spirits with the spirit. Y'all need to tag that somehow, Mary. I like that. Spirits with the spirit. That's awesome. So who are some of the other residents that were featured this year, Mary, on the tour?
So some of the other residents this year, we featured Mrs. Evelyn Heisman, who was the ex-wife of John Heisman, for whom the Heisman Trophy is named.
Oh, okay.
We featured William Wright Bryan, who was the reporter who broke D-Day during World War II, and he had a really remarkable story. Between the Wright Bryan script and the Tates, people were just sobbing as they moved from those two stops onto the others. We had the actually a son-in-law of one of our previously featured residents that John portrayed. So John in 2019 portrayed Henry Rucker, and he can speak a little bit more about Henry Rucker, who was the director of the Internal Revenue Service here in Atlanta, and the longest serving director of Internal Revenue Service in town. And so we portrayed his son-in-law, Chief Aiken, who was one of the winningest football coaches in Black college football history, and in fact in college football history, period, as well as a land developer and a real estate broker and a contractor who just made enormous strides in providing affordable housing to the Black community and securing loans. And, I think redlining has come into the public eye more recently, and he was someone that was at the front lines combating that from the start, and making sure that affordable housing could be found for this growing, thriving Black community in Atlanta.
And as I understand it, to this very day, affordable housing is still an issue.
Yeah, we could use more Chief Aikens.
Okay. Anybody else?
Oh, I can list them all.
Yeah, I know we had 7 people. I just want to, shout all of them out.
Doc Swope, he was a stage manager and carpenter in the turn of the century theater world in Atlanta. We had Mildred Thompson, who was a dean of history at Vassar College and also a historian, who had some really interesting views, kind of as her history career progressed. And then finally we had Bertie Gaither, and Bertie Gaither is a really special story for us here at Oakland, because we kind of stumbled upon her story through the hardscape restoration of the historic Black burial grounds, which was funded by previous years capturing the spirit of Oakland. And so Bertie was special to us because, after our director of preservation, Ashley Shears, had lovingly restored her headstone, which is in and of itself a really remarkable story. Having that chance to kind of meet her in person was a really great experience.
Okay, awesome. So how do you use the same residents, tell the same resident story every year? Or if not, how do you go about, you put their names in the hats and see who we're going to pull this year? How do we get the residents that we're going to highlight?
Yeah, so we have 70,000 people. We're not repeating stories. Every year someone is like, "Where's Bobby Jones? We want to see him again." Like, you saw him once. If you keep coming back, don't you want different stories?
Right.
I think sometimes people expect the greatest hits of Oakland, kind of the famous people that are buried there. Most recently, Kenny Rogers was buried at Oakland.
Kenny Rogers, the country singer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of people don't realize he passed away, but he is buried at Oakland fairly recently.
I knew he passed. I didn't know he was an Atlanta resident.
Just northwest of Atlanta, yeah.
Okay.
And so it's always new people, and I think there's always going to be more stories to tell, more areas of Atlanta's history that needs to be revisited. Sometimes it's something that's kind of more in the news or that is relevant. Sometimes it's just a really good story. So and it's entirely up to me who goes on.
Okay.
I love it. I have ultimate control. No, but
that's a lot of power, Mary.
We take input from our volunteers, our historians on staff, residents, descendants will come and say, I think this would be a great story. Many of our actors have been very involved in the selection of which residents we portray, or which kind of type of resident we portray, as far as, I want a sad story, I want an exciting story. Right. Okay, well, we'll see what we can find.
Okay. And was it is billed as a Halloween themed tour, right?
Yes, but we enlighten, not frighten. That's our tagline.
We enlighten, not frighten. Because I was trying to figure out the whole Halloween theme because there's nothing scary about it, other than the fact that it's in a cemetery. If you consider that scary, I used to when I was younger. I don't anymore.
People just want to be in the cemetery in October, and so it's a kind of a nice way to make that happen. And honestly, having that many folks kind of filtering in and out of the cemetery keeps shenanigans down on Halloween. So, so that always is a plus side of things.
Okay, awesome. John, let me bring you back in here, because you said you've been doing the tour for 3 years, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so, have you had a chance to play other residents?
Yes, I have.
Portray.
I'm sorry?
Who would you portray in the other years you?
So Henry Rucker, and I'm gonna need Mary's help for the first one, because the first one was was another one with the.
Was it a couple?
It was a couple, right?
I know it wasn't the Palmers.
No, that was the Palmers. It was the year after that, from right here.
Oh,
yeah.
That was before my time.
Stumped me.
That was before
I got
my
the Henry
time.
Rucker one right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So let me ask you this, John. Is there anything that really stood out to you while you were doing the performances of the tapes, or is there any memory that you had that really just stood out while you were doing these performances?
Yeah, as performers, a lot of times, the crowd is, we really don't get a chance to really see the reaction of the crowd, right?
Right.
But this, the crowd's right there,
right in front of you, yeah.
And I have to tell you, what Mary was saying as far as, and what you alluded to earlier too, as far as like the emotions that this brought out of people.
Yes.
I know, when I was rehearsing it with my partner, I was rehearsing a lot with Gloria, and we talked a lot about, just the little nuances of who the Tates were, and just, just trying to bring just different elements out from the story. And we talked about how this is really, a beautiful story.
Yes.
And our goal was just to relay this to people, just the beauty of the story and the heart of the story.
Yes.
But to see the people's reaction, to see, like, we'd be telling the story and you'd see this reaction of, that, you start seeing people that they're really experiencing the story. Yeah. They just weren't feeling it, but they were actually experiencing it. So that for me was, and was the thing that really stuck out. And that happened over and over again. So within an hour, so for folks who don't know, when we'll go up in tandems. And so we'll do it for an hour, and then the other couple will switch out with the other couple. So we might see, 5 to 6 different groups each time. And so each time, though, somebody, or there would be people that you could see that were really there with us and really in the story and really experiencing it.
Right.
And so that for me was something that I take away, as a performer. Yeah. To get the opportunity to see the reaction and the experience that the crowd is having is, we don't get that very often. So to get it, it was beautiful, to be part of that.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I felt that same thing, like I mentioned earlier. That was a highlight for me, just hearing people say, oh, you made me misty-eyed, or you made me cry, or what have you. That was an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
Okay. My other memorable moment, before I get into that memorable moment, I want to shout out all of the Tates. Okay. Start with the lovely ladies, Miss Gloria Elder, Cheryl Booker, Mia Smith, and Chelsea. What was Chelsea?
Cutright.
Cutright. Chelsea Cutright. Shout out to you lovely ladies. I love my wives. Y'all were awesome. That ain't a polyamory setup. Fall back. And the gentlemen were Mr. John Doyle, of course, Cheddar, what's Cheddar's last name?
Galloway.
Cheddar Galloway, and Jason Louder, and myself, Vincent Cheeks. They were all amazing in what they did in bringing this script to life. So I just wanted to shout all of them out. And now, with that being said, I have to shout out my super tapes. I have 3 super tapes, and it's because the first 2 days that I was on this production, I was dealing with a high blood pressure issue.
Oh, that's right.
That I did not know about, right? So the first night I'm performing, the last hour, I have this high blood pressure issue where I forget my lines on stage, which is not a good feeling, okay? But I didn't know what was going on at the time. When I left, I was lightheaded and had a headache. The next day, somebody told me I should go check my blood pressure. My blood pressure was 165 over 117, okay? Normally 120 over 80. So it was pretty high. So, they were like, oh, you need to relax the rest of the day. Don't do this, don't do that. Someone told me to take somebody else's high blood pressure medicine. So I did that. People, please never do that. You should never take anyone's medication. Let me put that out there right now. But the reason I did that is because I had to perform again Friday night. And I was not going to not perform again Friday night. So I took the medicine, went back Friday night. Beginning of the performance was going great again. The last hour, my symptoms started coming back. So I was on stage and forgot my lines again. Horrible feeling. But I knew this was happening again. My man, Jason Louder, he stepped in. He was like, bro, you need to just go sit down, bro. Just go relax because we don't want nothing to happen to you, right? When I went off the stage area, Mia was sitting over there, who was my singing partner and teacher throughout this. Thank you, Mia. Mia said 2 things to me that stood out. I had just taken some more medicine for the headache. She told me to stop putting stuff in she said, stop taking stuff. Stop putting stuff in your body till you go to the doctor, right? So I was like, okay, yes, ma'am, I'll listen to you. Then she convinced me to go to the hospital because I still wasn't going to go to the hospital because, I'm a man, I'm a Black man, don't really trust the medical profession, all this stuff. And I don't have insurance. But Mia, thank you, Mia, convinced me to go to the hospital. Emory, shout out to Emory. They hooked me up even with no insurance. I was able to go the next day to DJ my godmother's 70th birthday party. I say all that to say, I really felt the love of the Tates with Jason, Mia, and Cheryl Booker. She later gave me a lot of holistic medicine remedies that I could use because I told her I didn't like taking medication. So just with all of that, how they stepped in, how they just showed so much care and concern for me, for somebody they don't even know. I just really felt the love of the Tates in that moment. And so you all always have a special place in my heart, my super Tates. I appreciate y'all. Thank you very much. And, I went to the doctor and was able to finish the rest of the production. So
this is the first time I've heard about this, which I understand why, because I would have sent you home to rest.
Oh, no.
I wouldn't have let you come in.
And then Vincent, if I was there, I would have been like, hey, it's not my hour yet, bro. You got to keep going. Sorry.
This is the same man that didn't want to wear my gloves because he said he didn't know where my hands had been, okay? It was cold that night. Forget you, John. You didn't have to wear my gloves, okay? But no, it was, and like you said, John, just everybody in this production was super friendly, super accommodating. Everyone did their job to perfection, from the tour guide, the people serving us the food, the costume, the sound, everybody was on point, you know, and it was just a really all around enjoyable experience.
Can I piggyback off that? Because also what tends to happen too, because we're all sitting out there, you know, in between our shifts, and we just start conversations with people, and we're having conversations with people we normally probably wouldn't have conversations with.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And so I'm learning about different people, and you know, so that's also one of the beauty of capturing Oakland spirit, because you have so many people, and you have so many good-hearted people there.
Yeah.
And it just brings forth just this. So not only are there stories that are on the tour, but there's stories that have been shared, you know, in the tent, you know, when we're all gathered in between our shifts.
Yeah, I heard some ghost stories about Oakland Cemetery when we were in the tent a few times. And, you know, Mary shared something with me that last week that really kind of, I don't want to say freaked me out, but it gave me an eerie feeling when, I don't know if you remember, or I know you remember when it was raining and you told me about the bricks. And when it rained, you could see the fingerprints on the bricks that were laying in the cemetery come up. And she was like, those are probably the fingerprints of the enslaved people that built the cemetery. And I just got a chill, like, oh my gosh, that is so, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, you know, it is a lot of history there. You know, if you're not too much of a spooky person, you know, you should go there and check it out. Before the production even started, I went there just to get acquainted with the residents, if you will, and just, you know, show my respects since I was going to be in their home, in their area. So, yeah, it was just an all around great experience, and you know, I would be honored if I could come back and do it again next year, because it was just that great. You know, the people were that great. But we're running out of time. We're 7 minutes in. Thank you all for listening to WCEG Network. We are talking to Mary Fernandez and Mr. John Doyle, who were in the production Capturing the Spirit of Oakland, which is every year from mid-October to October 31st every year. And Mary, how can people get ticket information for next year, and how can they make donations that they can write off on their taxes, because Oakland Cemetery is a nonprofit?
So all of that can be found on our website, oaklandcemetery.com. Okay. Every year, tickets go on sale July 15th, but I highly recommend becoming a member because if you are a member of the Historic Oakland Foundation, you get to access tickets 2 weeks before anyone else. And there are not going to be a lot of tickets to go around past the member sale. So I definitely recommend that.
Right. And you sell out every year, right?
Oh, yeah. Every year in July. So
every year in July you sell out?
Yeah.
That's what, 3 months before the production?
Hottest ticket in Atlanta.
Oh, excuse me. All right, people, you heard what the lady said. You have to get the tickets early. You start selling them. Do you have a specific
July 15th is when they go on sale to the general public. Earlier if you're a member.
Okay, awesome. And John, sir, do you have any other projects you're working on or anything coming up that you want to let the people know about?
Sure. I'm actually in a production right now. We have our opening night Friday. It's a play called Calming the Man.
Okay.
Yeah, Calming the Man. It's part of the Essential Theater Festival. It's going to be at the West End Performing Arts Center. And we open this Friday. And you can actually go to essentialtheater.com to get information on that. And yeah. And
it opens where?
I'm sorry?
It opens where?
At the West End Performing Arts Center.
Okay.
On Friday.
Yeah. And where can we get the info from?
Go essentialtheater.com.
Essential Theater. Is that theater with the T-E-R?
Yeah, T-R-E, I believe.
T-R-E. You have to look, you gotta ask. Essentialtheater.com.
Right.
All right. Thank you for that, sir. And John, you also do some work with children. Can you give us a quick tidbit on that also?
Yeah. So I have my company's is Arts Education Integration Agency. Okay. And I do performances at schools, and I have residencies at schools. Yeah, and so I also do storytelling at schools as well. And my heart is working with, like how you said, the Opportunity Challenge. Is that how you put it?
Opportunity Challenge, yes.
Yeah, I love that. So I've been working with youth out of the Fulton County Juvenile Courthouse for the past 12 years now, I think.
Okay. Years, yeah. I would like to get with you on that, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for anybody who's looking for storytelling and performances at schools, my website is aei.agency. aei.agency.
AEI, Apple, Egg, Ignite.
There you go.
Agency.
That agency, yes, sir. But yeah, we're always looking for, like we've talked before. I'd love to bring you into the fold with these at the courthouse. They can really be inspired by a brother like you. So
yes, sir. I would greatly appreciate that. And you, sir, keep up the great work. Maybe next year in 2022, I can get you on to come back to talk about arts education integration.
I got you, brother.
I'd love to do that. And with that, that's the end of our show, people. I appreciate you all. Mary, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to come, John. Same for you, sir. I appreciate y'all. It has been a pleasure to meet with you all and work with you all on this production, and I would love to do it again next year. Shout out to Matt Huff, the director. Shout out to all the tapes, the fake tape family, which was us, and the real tape family for allowing us to portray your ancestors in such a way. Yeah, thank you. Great job to both of you and to everybody who put in work on this production. Don't miss out on next year. Tickets go on sale July 15th. The performances are from October 14th to October 31st. We got to get out of here real quick before I go. I would like to shout out my Scholar of the Week. And I don't know his first name because I forgot, but it is my scene partner, Mia Smith's son. I call him Lil Altuve because of his courage, of his convictions to come to our production with the Jose Altuve jersey on when the Atlanta Braves are in the middle of the World Series playoff, okay? And we had grown-ups coming at him. I was the first one to come at him, like, little boy, do you know where you live? You are in the city of Atlanta. Why do you have that jersey on? Oh, Altuve is my favorite player. He's small, but he plays big. And he articulated himself very well why he had the Altuve jersey. Yeah. And he said, I'm sorry, but you're going to be sad when the series is over because Atlanta's going to lose. I couldn't be mad. I had to big him up on the courage of his convictions when even in the face of an adult, okay? So shout out Lil Altuve, Mia's son.
His name was Kyron, by the way.
Kyron, there we go. Thank you. Kyron Smith, you are my Scholar of the Week because you are a young man of your convictions, sir. I can highly respect and appreciate that. And with that being said, that is our show for today. Thank you, Miss Mary Fernandez. Thank you, Mr. John Doyle. Thank you to our listening audience each and every year. We will be back with Conversations in Education with myself, Vincent Cheeks, in January of 2022. So y'all stick around for it. Happy holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year. And if you're voting in the runoff elections, they are Tuesday, November the 30th. Early voting is November 17th through the 24th. You're listening to WCEG Network. We are the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group. We hope you have a blessed